Welcome to the Hockey Writers Chicks and Sticks, a weekly show hosted by some of our best female hockey writers, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and much more. From talking hockey with NHL personalities to tackling the latest big issues, our team covers everything hockey and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some Chicks and Sticks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 32 of Chicks and Sticks, brought to you by the Hockey Writers. My name is Melissa Boyd, and I'm once again joined by my partners in crime, Hannah Garfield and Mariah Stark. Unfortunately, Christy is not with us tonight. She's covering the New Jersey Devils game. So before we get started for this week, I just wanted to let you all know, because the Olympics are only a few days away, that the Hockey Writers will be providing extensive coverage of both the men's and women's tournament starting next week. I know the men's coverage has already started with team previews and players to watch for different teams, and our women's coverage will be starting over the next 2 days. So be sure to check all of that out at thehockeywriters.com. We've got two great teams working on those two tournaments. So we will start our show to this week as we always do. Minus Christy, unfortunately, I'm sure, but she's covering the Devils game to bring us more news for next week. So our team updates. We'll go around the table here. Hannah, how are things in Boston?
Not quite as auspicious as they have been. You know, January's been such a great month for the Bruins. And in the last week, you know, they've kind of come back down to earth a little bit. They lost a tough game last night against Colorado. But, you know, the good thing is that you're still seeing production from the second line of Taylor Hall, Eric Holla, David Pastrnak. Like that they're still being, you know, playing a big role on the team, which is, you know, good to see considering, you know, the team's issues with depth scoring, especially, you know, the first half of the season. So, you know, while they've had a couple losses this past week, things are still looking pretty good for the Bruins.
Yeah, that Boston Colorado game last night was pretty good. I watched the end of it, and wow. It's like, oh, this is what good teams look like. Yeah.
Oh, poor Mel. Poor Mel.
Oh, only. Well, I'm a little mad at Mariah right now, and
that's why I'm
laughing because her Minnesota Wild put a butt kicking on the Habs this week, 8-2 in Minnesota. So maybe if you could not talk about that game, that would be nice. Otherwise, how are things in Minnesota?
I was going to say, when you said that, I had to laugh because I'm like, oh, I know exactly what she's talking about. Let's see. Since we recorded last, they won their back-to-back against Chicago and Mel's game that we won't talk about now.
The game that will not be named.
Over the weekend, they did lose. Talbot came in and then re-injured himself. So Kakkonen was back in net, and Kakkonen's been doing good. But from what I'm hearing, Talbot should be in net tomorrow, I believe. And I think Brodin possibly is back. I couldn't remember what I heard. I had so many injuries going through my head. I'm like, no, they're all back. Things are good. I mean, we have two players in protocols now, so that makes me a little nervous. But hopefully they get better and we have smooth sailing from here. But I can't really complain about anything, so I'll just end it there.
Well, I'll say I like the Wild at the beginning of the season, but watching them play, like, they are impressive, and they are a team to watch for sure going into the playoffs. I really like how that team is built. But anyway, you know, we won't talk about Kaprizov going for a little skate there in the ozone either, but that's okay. I was like,
I was yelling at the TV to stop doing that.
This like 15 seconds of play is like really microcosm of the Canadian season, because that's really what teams have been doing, kind of skating them into the ground.
Hey,
so
Pitlick is doing well for you, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yes. playing his first game at the Bell Center tonight, actually. So. But yeah, well, I don't really need to update the Canadiens because it's more of the same. They are back home at the Bell Center, playing in front of an empty building, unfortunately, until February 7th, I believe it is. But they are back home now after a long road trip, so it's nice. 10 of their next 11 games are in Montreal, so it'll be nice. At least they get to be at home for a while. And yeah, it's a lot of off ice stuff. So trade speculation going into the deadline. Obviously, Canadiens are going to be a hot spot there. A lot of players of interest that might be on the move from now until March 21st. And obviously we'll see what this new management group is going to do first. So we're all just kind of waiting, and a roster is getting healthier, which is good news. Cole Garfield comes off COVID protocol tomorrow, Armia as well. And we have Brendan Gallagher and Paul Byron, who hasn't played all season, who are close to coming back too. So at least it looks more like our regular roster. So our first topic of the evening is also happening next week, along with the Olympics, the All-Star Game in Las Vegas. Well, I'm sure everyone has an opinion about the All-Star Game and how it's put together, whether it's from the players who are selected to the events they do in the skills competition, to the game itself, and how, the format of the game, they seem to keep changing it, trying to find the right formula, and some of it works, some of it doesn't work. So I wanted to get your opinions on the All-Star Game itself. The first question I had was, the player selection process. So there's lots of complaints that because each team, the NHL deems that each team needs to be represented by one player, that a lot of players get left out for that reason. We heard Nathan MacKinnon sort of express his disappointment with some of his teammates being left off the team. So what are your thoughts on this selection process? Should it be an actual All-Star Game where it's all the best players, or do you think it's important that each team gets represented? Mariah, we'll start with you.
Oh boy.
He has a rant ready.
So as far as representation goes, if they wanted to go that way and make it that important that every team, then fine. Every team has a player, but they have to do something to make it more entertaining, because the players at this rate don't care about the game. It's not important to them. And obviously I'm not speaking for every player, but most of them, it's there's no stakes involved. What do they care if they go? As far as talent, no, I don't think every team should have a player, because Colorado obviously had Kadri left out originally, but he was last man voted in. My bias, Ryan Hartman got left out. I mean, there's so many talented players. Unfortunately for the league, they're on a certain teams, so not every team has one player that should go. But like I said, I would probably say no if they want to go on talent alone. Otherwise, if they want each team to have, they got to switch it up somehow and make it so it's actually enjoyable to watch.
Yep. It's kind of a non-entertaining game of shinny at this point.
Other than listening to the goalies when they're mic'd up, that's entertaining.
Hannah, what are your thoughts on the player selection process?
I don't hate having every team represented, because I think it does, fans want to see a guy from their team there. So I get that. I think they need to bring more players, because there's too many good players that get left out, and entertaining players, someone like Brad Marchand, he's gonna be your, people hate him, but he's gonna be your source of entertainment at an All-Star Game. And he's left off. So I think they need to invite more players, and I think they need to really assess what players they're inviting, because there are certain guys that, someone like Alex Ovechkin, who a couple years ago straight up said he didn't want to go and still got invited and took the 1 game suspension. Don't invite those guys in the first place. If it's not people don't care. People don't care enough about the All-Star game as it is. Why bring players that also don't care? Like, bring guys who actually, like, bring back the young guns, bring back the, you know, future stars, like bring the guys who actually want to be there, because if they're having fun, it will come across as fun to the viewers.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. That was my point as well. I think they should be bringing more players, and even if they're not participating in the game itself, like put them in the skills competition, you know, really sort of tailor each skill competition to who you know is best. Like somebody was saying a joke, like for the hardest shot competition, like they should bring Chera. Like, I mean, and like they were even joking, like, would Shea Weber come out of wherever and just go and do that? But I think, yeah, and I think, yeah, that to me is it. And I agree. I think they should bring back like the Future Stars game and things like that, so that more players can participate and there's more of a representation around the league. I mean, I won't go into the fact that I'm not sure that the Elstrom game should be really happening this year, but I understand the, you know, sponsorship, you know, implications there. And obviously the NHL is losing enough money as it is this season. So I understand that point, but it feels a little bit weird that we're having this sort of spectacle happening when at the same time as when NHL players were supposed to be going to the Olympics. So just a mid-show reminder, again, Olympics, speaking of the Olympics, make sure that you check out our extensive coverage that we'll be providing of the men's and women's tournament starting next week. It's good because a lot of the players you probably don't know that will be playing in the tournament, but we'll have you covered there. You won't miss anything. So now that we've reached the midpoint of the season, halfway point, we're halfway there, 41 games in. Who is your Hart Trophy favorite right now, midway point? So there's a lot of choices. Alex Ovechkin, obviously McDavid, Draisaitl, Jonathan Huberdeau, who's having an amazing season with the Panthers. Like, there's a lot of choices. But for you girls, who stands out the most? Hannah, with you.
So I'm gonna give my biased answer and my unbiased answer, because I really think Brad Marchand should be in the conversation for the Hart Trophy. I think he is one of the best players in the league. I think that the fact that so many people just kind of write his game off as being a pest is really it's wrong at this point. Like, it's doing a disservice to what he's become in the second half of his career, which is really something spectacular. Spectacular. Like, you don't see many players as better as he is at 33 than he was at 23. Like, he is so much of, like, you don't see guys get that better a decade after, you know, they come into a league. You know, he has 46 points in 35 games. He's on pace to hit 100 points again this season for the second time in his career. And if you're, you know, for Hart Trophy is most valuable, traditionally it's, you know, what player is most valuable to their team. The Bruins are nothing without Brad Marchand. He does the penalty kill, he does the power play, he's their leading point scorer. Like, he is very much the heart and soul of that team. He, you know, a couple years ago when Taylor Hall won the Hart Trophy, it was very much because he basically dragged that New Jersey Devils team into the playoffs. Marchand has a little bit more of a supporting cast around him, but he's still very much like the center of that team, and I think he deserves to be in the conversation. And if he won it, I think it was not a stretch to see him win it. And then I really do think Jonathan Huberdeau is not getting enough conversation. The guys, Florida in general is having such a good season, and it just doesn't get discussed as much because it's the Florida Panthers. And I think years ago, Shell fans kind of decided to write them off. But they're really having such an incredible season, and Huberdeau is a plus 17. He has like 50 points in like 30 games. Like, he's having a great season down in Florida, and is a big reason why that team is having so much success this year.
Yeah, agree. He's definitely what I would say he's probably the most underrated player in the NHL right now. No, he's pretty close.
Agreed.
I have to say too about Marchand. I mean, we all know the Montreal Boston rivalry, but I just like what he's been doing, especially off ice, and just how sort of engaging he's been. And we all know about his, social media quips sometimes, which are awesome, like legendary. I really like how, he's kind of opened himself up. It seems more this season and really become quite likable actually, and sort of starting to erase that reputation, at least off ice. So yeah, I agree. He's definitely someone who should be in the conversation. Mariah, who's stood out to you so far?
So I'm going to copy Hannah, but I'm going to do it in the opposite order. I'm going to do my unbiased and then my biased opinion. Unbiased, I would say Jonathan Huberdeau as well, just because, I mean, like we said, he's in Florida. He's not getting the attention he should be. He's number 1 in the league in assists at 42, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to go into my bias. He won the Calder in 2012-13. So, I mean, he doesn't get enough credit. And to my bias, I'm going to go with the Calder winner from last season and say Kaprizov should be in the talks. I don't want to say necessarily he should win. I do, but realistically, I know he probably won't. But I mean, his talent and what he means to the Wild in general too is similar to Marchand to Boston. I mean, the Wild they probably wouldn't even be on the map without him. He brings so much energy and skill to the lineup. And yeah, we've done okay when the one game he was out, but it's just, you can see how the roster reacts when he's in the game versus when he's not. And that's where I'll end that.
Oh, good. No, he's definitely, he's one of the best players in the league. There's no doubt about that. I'm going to go to the Rangers here because they've pleasantly surprised me this season with how well they've done. And I have two sort of dark horse candidates for me, but like Igor Shesterkin, the goalie, it's kind of amazing that the Rangers went from having Henrik Lundqvist and now they have Shesterkin. It's like embarrassment of riches there in net. And he's just having like an outstanding season for someone so young to be doing so well. I think he should definitely be in the conversation. And the other one is Chris Kreider. I mean, who had on their bingo card Chris Kreider being the first player to get 30 goals this season in the league? Certainly not me. And I give him a lot of credit because he decided to stay in New York through a rebuild. I mean, it's a fast rebuild, but he committed to the team and people didn't think he was going to. And he's really become a leader for that team. And so to me, I would talk about them a little bit more in addition to Huberdeau. So,
Rangers, I saw the other day, they're first in the Metropolitan, and I was shocked. I was like, I did not I knew they were doing well, but I did not realize that they were first.
Yeah, and it's like, and I remember at the beginning of the season we all said how tough the Metropolitan's going to be, and I don't think any of us had New York being on top. But it's like they rebound well, like so they lose a game and then like they go off and they win 3, so then it's no big deal. But yeah, they're being led definitely by those two guys this year. The last topic when we wanted to cover this week, of course we had to talk about it because it's historic and it was coming, but we're glad that it happened. So and so is our producer Matt. I know we talked to him before the show, but so the Vancouver Canucks earlier this week hired Emilie Castonguay as assistant general manager. She's the first female assistant general manager in Vancouver history and team history. So obviously a historic hire and sort of another glass ceiling broken moment for us, the NHL and for sports. So it's great news. But I mean, beyond that, she's super qualified. For those who don't know who she is, She is a former agent. So that's 2 former agents who have joined NHL front offices in the last few weeks. She's a former agent. Her clients include Alexis Lafreniere from the Rangers. She's also the agent of Marie-Philippe Poulin, who is the Team Canada, obviously very prolific player on the women's side. She has a long list of clients. Yes, she's a woman, but we must say that she's also incredibly qualified for the job, and it's great that she's there and hired by Jim Rutherford. So I wanted to get your thoughts, girls, on the hiring. Well, does it mean, what are your thoughts? And does it represent a shift in sort of how we're going to see front offices built in the future? Like, do you feel like things are changing for the better finally? Mariah, we'll start with you.
I think it's a great hire. I'll be honest, I did not know who she was before they announced it because I don't really follow things other than the players, really. I'm trying to get better at that, but I mean, she's, like you said, she's an agent, and I read more up on her. She played 4 years of Division I hockey, so she has a hockey background. She knows how the game works besides watching it on a TV. She has a degree in finance and law, so she understands the back office or the front office, back office stuff.
It's also the back office.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
it's where all the sketchy stuff happens.
Like, she understands how things operate as far as building a team and what goes into it, besides putting the pieces together, understanding where they belong as far as on the ice goes. So I think it's great, and that she's qualified. And as far as the shift, I mean, I think it's been happening. I just think it's been harder to find people. Maybe I don't know if they don't apply because I don't think they're going to get looked at, or if it's just trying to find that person that has that background and can actually, understand the game and stuff. So I think it's good, and I think it's going to happen more and more. So.
Yeah, agreed. Hannah, are you the same thought process too?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. I've been on the show about the lack. I feel like this season has really hit hard. I think the NHL has really had to confront, and it should be continued to confront. It's that it isn't a very diverse league, that it isn't that they have these issues. Especially, in the wake of the last week with all the racial issues and the ECHL and the AHL and, hockey, we all love hockey and we want more people to love hockey. And the way to do that is making the sport more diverse. So I absolutely love seeing this hire. I think it's awesome. I think it's great. It makes me not want to hate the Canucks. Not that I've really ever hated the Canucks, but it makes me want to and support them, because I love seeing this. I think it's hard when it's just the first one to say, yes, this is a definite shift in the right direction, because I think I want to continue to see if the NHL is really going to continue to, set it, they always say hockey is for everyone, but let's actually start seeing some more action besides you just saying the words hockey is for everyone. So this is a great move in the right direction of making it more diverse and making it appeal, just making it more welcoming for everyone. But I think I'm not ready to say that the NHL's thumbs up on all those fronts.
No, for sure. I'm glad you brought up the incidents this week as well. It's kind of, I was going to say it's been another tough week for hockey in that regard. And it kind of at least this came along and kind of was like, okay, not all bad.
Of course.
But I agree. I think I don't think the shift is complete yet, but I think, I think teams and executives are much more aware of it than they were. Much more committed to making those changes, that shift in mentality. So I think it'll be slow, but I think it will happen. And I think your point, Mariah, about maybe most women don't want to apply or don't want to, because they don't think they'll get hired, or they're worried about the scrutiny that they will face. But I think something like this happening will only encourage them to do it more, maybe. So she's really, I think, a trailblazer in that regard. So yeah,
other teams might pay attention to that and be like, hey, we can do this too.
Yeah, for sure. And they, and what I like too is that the hiring was made by Jim Rutherford, who is traditionally sort of known as one of the old timers, from the past a little bit. So it's nice to see that he is initiating this kind of change, and that he was very vocal about it even before hiring her. So it's nice to see that old guard is buying in as well. It's encouraging in that way. Also, I had to give a shout out because she's from Montreal, so way to go, Emilie. And it was nice too. She had a lot of Montreal media on her conference call, so she was able to express herself in both languages. It was nice to see that support for her. So, but yes, go Canucks. And yeah, we're our producer Matt is pretty lucky to have her in the front office in Vancouver. All right, well, that wraps up the show already for this week. Goes by a little bit faster when we're just 3, I guess. We'll look forward to welcoming Christy back next week. Hopefully she'll have lots to tell us from the Devil's world. And until then, again, just a reminder, Olympics start next week, so get your sleep, because, or I should say, change your sleep schedule, because it's a big time difference from in Beijing. So make sure you got everything set, and set your alarms. And well, I'm going to be biased and say go Canada, but I'm sure the girls will say go USA.
USA. USA.
And be sure to check out all of our Olympic coverage at thehockeywriters.com. Both the men's and the women's tournaments will be covered extensively. We will bring you all the latest, and we're going to get you set up for their tournament too over the next few days, so that you feel more knowledgeable before you start watching. So thanks again, as always, for your support, and we'll see you next week.